Unsurprisingly, pursuing material wealth does not appear to bring long-lasting happiness, as confirmed by Robert Waldinger, a psychiatrist and the fourth director of the Harvard Study of Adult Development, one of the most complete studies on happiness ever carried out. For over 75 years, the Harvard study tracked the home lives, health, and work of 724 men without having any idea how the story of each life would play out. They examined the men's medical records, drew their blood, scanned their brains, and talked to their children. Out of the original 724 men, 60 were still alive and participating in the study in 2016. And now, the study is starting to look at the lives of more than 2,000 children of these pioneering individuals. Robert Waldinger spoke about the results of the Harvard study in a TED Talk given in November 2015. He noted that many young men begin adult life thinking that wealth and fame create the good life, but the happiness of achieving fame and fortune can vanish completely if fame and fortune are diminished or altogether removed. A recent survey asked millennials to reveal their most important goals in life. A staggering 80% commented that their major goal was to be rich, while 50% of the same millennials commented that their second major goal was to be famous. Yet, in the end, according to the Harvard study, this is not enough. The discovery that wealth and fame do not necessarily create a good life is confirmed by a different body of research published 14 years ago, suggesting that doing good or helping others contributes to a far more meaningful and happy life than pursuing material gain. In this study, lead researcher Michael Steger suggests that greater well-being comes with engaging in eudaimonic behaviours, inherently meaningful endeavours, resulting in an increased sense of well-being the following day. Eudaimonic is a Greek word referring to a life well lived, or to a deeper happiness that transcends the hedonistic opposites, pursuing pleasure and avoiding pain. Eudaimonic happiness is the opposite to hedonic happiness, a term that can be traced back to the Greek philosopher Aristotle and the Cyrenaic school of philosophy. It all comes down to the end goal of life, and what we think is the end goal of life. For Aristotle, the end goal was pleasure, fine food, and wine. Luckily, he also thought that his followers should apply good judgment and use self-control to moderate strong human desires. Otherwise, the result might have been chaos and misery for others. Michael Steger and his colleagues conducted 2 studies, both of which showed that eudaimonic behaviours were more closely associated with well-being than activities aimed at obtaining pleasure. The conclusion was that doing good for others might be a significant avenue through which people could create meaningful and satisfying lives for themselves. Perhaps that is why there is such a heartwarming aspect to the Yakult report, which suggests that many young people think their purpose is to do as much good as they can. Such thinking is eudaimonic and would have pleased the Greek philosopher Aristotle. He also believed that happiness was final, self-sufficient, the end of action, and a virtuous activity of the soul, or, to put it another way, the result of honourable living. In tandem with Aristotle, the philosopher Plato also held that happiness is not some temporary pleasure or satisfaction, but is found in a life of virtue and goodness. Plato expected citizens to do their duty, and maintained that if they did, then their happiness would be assured. In regard to government, Plato was well aware of lesser states of happiness when he spoke of the happiness of the tyrant. In the early days of his tyranny, he smiles and beams upon everybody. He is not a dominus, no, not he. He has only come to put an end to debt and the monopoly of land. Having got rid of foreign enemies, he makes himself necessary to the state by always going to war. He is thus enabled to depress the poor by heavy taxes and so keep them at work. And he can get rid of bolder spirits by handing them over to the enemy. Then comes unpopularity. Some of his old associates have the courage to oppose him. The consequence is that he has to make a purgation of the state. But unlike the physician who purges away the bad, he must get rid of the high-spirited, the wise and the wealthy, for he has no choice between death and a life of shame and dishonor. And the more hated he is, the more he will require trusty guards. But how will he obtain them? They will come flocking like birds, for pay. Will he not rather obtain them on the spot? He will take the slaves from their owners and make them his bodyguard. These are his trusted friends who admire and look up to him. Are not the tragic poets wise who magnify and exalt the tyrant and say that he is wise by association with the wise? And are not their praises of tyranny alone a sufficient enough reason why we should exclude them from our state? Plato reserved some of his strongest condemnation for tyrannical leaders, believing them to descend into helplessness, misery, the opposite of happiness. Hence, on the individual level, happiness between one person and another comes from the giving and receiving of the emotion of love. On the national level, happiness in government comes from fulfilling the needs of the people and enjoying the love and respect that comes back at them. And on the international level, happiness between nations occurs when every nation is fulfilled and looks to nurture and preserve fulfillment in every other nation. When two parties, whether national or personal, each act in such a way as to bring satisfaction to the other, then happiness has a better chance of flowing like a stream down a mountain. As the founder of the Transcendental Meditation Organization, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi states, happiness has certainly to be taken into account while considering the performance of any action, because the aim of any action is the increase of happiness. The very purpose of creation and of evolution is expansion of happiness. So, if happiness does not result from an action, then that action defeats the very purpose of action, and its performance cannot be justified. Happiness has many levels, from supreme happiness of a permanent nature, through the happiness resulting from a life that brings maximum satisfaction to ourselves and contributes to the welfare of others, to the transient moments of happiness that are the day-to-day experience of most people. Nonetheless, it is perfectly possible that people who are very happy can enjoy both eudaimonic and hedonic aspects of happiness. In other words, they live their lives well, contribute to the well-being of others, and at the same time enjoy material gain. But power in itself cannot be the ultimate key to happiness, because powerful people can still have unhappy marriages, need therapy, feel lonely and worse, struggle to maintain power, experience stress, and face their fair share of disappointment. Plato and Aristotle were aligned with the idea that eudaimonic behaviours increase a sense of personal well-being, as does Michael Steger in our own time. But perhaps one of the most famous contemporary psychologists whose hierarchy of needs champions the eudaimonic perspective was the influential American psychologist Abraham Maslow. As you will see, Abraham Maslow envisioned a hierarchy of 5 needs that still stand as a model of human happiness. Physiological, food, water, warmth, rest, continues throughout all levels. Safety, security and safety, belongingness and love, intimate relationships and friends, esteem, prestige and feelings of accomplishment, self-actualization, achieving our full potential, health, happiness, fulfillment. Each level of need refers to a level of happiness. The first is the basic biological need for food, water, warmth and rest. These are needs that are essential for human survival and continue throughout all other states. The second level refers to security. This not only includes physical safety, it embraces economic and social safety, neither of which are easy to find in times of conflict. Then comes the need for a sense of accomplishment, something that increases our self-esteem and self-confidence. The fourth level emphasizes our need to belong, to feel that we are loved and have friends and intimate relationships that sustain us through challenging times. The final stage is self-actualization. where we become the best person we can be by fulfilling our potential. This is the highest happiness for Maslow, the level of peak experiences, which, while temporary, are still moments where we can experience transcendence of self. Maslow describes self-actualized people in this way. Self-actualizing people, those who have come to a high level of maturation, health, and self-fulfillment, have so much to teach us that sometimes they seem almost like a different breed of human beings. But because this is so new, the exploration of the highest reaches of human nature and of its ultimate possibilities and aspirations is a difficult and torturous task. It has involved, for me, the continuous destruction of cherished axioms, the perpetual coping with seeming paradoxes, contradictions and vagueness, and the occasional collapse around my ears of long-established, firmly believed in, and seemingly unassailable laws of psychology. The list of signs that confirm a self-actualized state include a zest of living, of happiness or euphoria, of serenity, of joy, of calmness, of responsibility, of confidence in one's ability to handle stresses, anxieties, and problems. In line with this, Maslow states his belief in a single ultimate value. It looks as if there were a single ultimate value for mankind, a far goal toward which all men strive. This is called variously by different authors: self-actualization, self-realization, integration, psychological health, individuation, autonomy, creativity, productivity. But they all agree that this amounts to realizing the potentialities of the person. That is to say, becoming fully human. Everything that the person can become. As described by Maslow, these peak experiences are moments of pure joy that eclipse every other joyful moment. Their memory can last, bring great comfort, and be likened to a spiritual experience. Spirituality can be described in different ways, but basically it is a universal human experience. Described in a paper by acceptance and commitment therapist ACT, Leticia Diego Mizembroek and her colleagues as the experience of connection with oneself, connectedness with others and nature, and connectedness with the transcendent. Maslow's hierarchy of needs has influenced other psychologists, such as Carol Reefy, who called on his thinking to form her own theory of well-being through eudaimonic behaviour. For Carol Reefy, more research is needed to address problems of unjust societies wherein greed among privileged elites may be a force compromising the eudaimonic well-being of those less privileged. She also discusses the need to better understand the role of the arts, broadly defined, in promoting eudaimonic well-being across all segments of society. Happiness or well-being may be an elusive emotion to define in words, but nowadays, individual happiness levels can be measured through research on different moods, different lifestyles, and changes in biochemistry. Even the overall happiness and well-being of society can be measured through wide-scale surveys, such as the World Happiness Report or the World Health Report. Even so, however useful it is to gauge the mood and well-being of society, it is equally important to improve the well-being and quality of life throughout society. If you want to learn more about the sort of thing we've been talking about here today, then please take a look at our book, Creating a Happy World by Patricia Ann Saunders, who also provided the script for this video, since stress, worry, and sadness appear to be on the rise. Creating a Happy World examines two paths to combat these and create a happy world. The path of the individual, which can be transformed through achieving higher states of consciousness with the Transcendental Meditation Program, and the path of society, which can be transformed through the impact of the Transcendental Meditation on collective consciousness. By the time readers finish reading, we hope they will feel more happiness in their own lives, a greater belief that life has a purpose, and increased optimism for the future of humanity. It's available right now from OBooks. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe and follow for future content, and we'll see you next time.